Hi everyone, welcome back to the Gate of Heaven video diary, where we are continuing our big adventure through the Dawnbreakers, really to get to know a bit more about the story behind Gate of Heaven, my new album based on the writings of the Bab, whose life is being celebrated this year. And I really hope that that these stories and the new music is really preparing our minds and our hearts for the big celebration taking place in October. So I'm really delighted to announce that the next song from the album is going to be released tomorrow on my YouTube channel. It's based on a really beautiful prayer written by the Bab on the subject of forgiveness. And so I'm looking forward to sharing that with you tomorrow. And I thought that we could just continue with the story today in preparation for tomorrow's release. So in the last video, the Bab had been living as a secret guest in the home of Máh-Kú Khan, the governor of Esfahan, that beautiful city known as the Jewel of Iran. And Máh-Kú Khan had become so enamored with and really wholeheartedly devoted to the Bab, and was protecting him from the threats that were gathering around him. But on Máh-Kú Khan's death, his successor, Gurgin Khan, had come in and had just plundered Máh-Kú Khan's possessions, and had discovered the Bab living in his home, and had reported the Bab to the king. And in response, the king had summoned the Bab to come to Tehran and meet with him in person, so that he could make a decision about what to do about all this. Because all this time, the king has been receiving all these mixed reports about the Bab, and he doesn't really know what to do with him. So he finally summons the Bab to come and meet with him in person. And so the Bab is then escorted by a military guard out of Esfahan for the second time, but this time for real. He is escorted out of the city on the road to Tehran to finally meet with the king. And at this point in the Dawnbreakers, we are introduced to a figure who is really one of the arch villains of the story of the Bab, and this is in fact the Prime Minister of Iran, Haji Mirza Agassi. And Prime Minister Agassi is so vehemently opposed to the Bab that he eventually goes down in history as the Antichrist of the Bab's revelation. So with Prime Minister Agassi, this whole element of envy really comes into play, again, possibly in its greatest manifestation. It seems that in the story of the Bab, there are these two major expressions of the higher nature and the lower nature of human nature. On the one hand, there is this rapturous love experienced by those people who allow the Bab's message, his verses, his writings to enter into their hearts, and they experience a kind of a total shift in their perspective on their fellow human beings and on themselves as human beings, and that the Bab's writings seem to nurture in their hearts this kind of boundless spirit of universal love for all of life. But on the other hand, there is this really poisonous envy that seems to take hold of those people who decide that it is their duty to destroy the Bab and everything he stands for. And this envy perhaps finds its greatest expression in Prime Minister Agassi. Agassi is absolutely terrified that if the king meets with the Bab in person, he too will become enamored with the Bab, and this will perhaps threaten his own position as Prime Minister of Iran. And so he wants to do everything that he can to prevent this meeting from happening. Because you see, Agassi is not only the Prime Minister, he also functions as the personal spiritual advisor to the king, to Muhammad Shah himself. And he has tremendous influence over the mind and the heart of the king, not just in the affairs of the state, but even in the private matters of the king's own personal life, Agassi has huge sway, but he is a master manipulator. And he manipulates the king into leaving Tehran just at the time that the Bab is approaching, and he persuades the king to just postpone this meeting until a later date. So as the Bab, with this military escort, is moving closer and closer towards Tehran, he's literally one day away from Tehran, and a message arrives from the Prime Minister addressed to the head of the guards, telling the guards to divert the Bab away from Tehran and to send him to another location. And this message is then followed by a letter written by the king himself addressed to the Bab. The king writes to the Bab, "Much as we desire to meet you, we find ourselves unable, in view of our immediate departure from our capital, to receive you befittingly in Tehran. We have signified our desire that you be conducted to Máh-Kú, and have issued the necessary instructions to Ali Khan, the warden of the castle, to treat you with respect and consideration. It is our hope and intention to summon you to this place upon our return to the seat of our government. We trust that we have caused you no disappointment." Now, a significant detail here. This little town of Máh-Kú, which is in the mountains in the north of Iran, is in fact the hometown of Prime Minister Agassi, and he knows the people there. So you can see how he has just totally manipulated the king into doing exactly what he wanted him to do. And Prime Minister Agassi sends orders to this warden of the castle, Ali Khan, to disregard all this stuff about treating the Bab with respect and consideration. And he orders Ali Khan to imprison the Bab, to lock him up in a cell, and to treat him with as much cruelty and discipline as he can muster. Now, who knows what might have happened if the king of Iran had ever actually met the Bab in person? Who knows what kinds of ripple effects that may have had on history? We will never know. But what we do know is that Prime Minister Agassi very deliberately prevented this meeting from ever taking place, and from that point onwards, the Bab is now a prisoner. And so Ali Khan, the warden of this castle, carries out the instructions of the Prime Minister. He locks up the Bab, and he forbids anyone from seeing him except for two of the Bab's closest companions, who are two brothers called Sayyid Hussein and Sayyid Hassan. Sayyid Hussein is actually one of the letters of the living, so he's actually been with the Bab from the very start, and Sayyid Hassan is his brother, and these two have been travelling with the Bab as helpers, and it's their job basically to bring food from the local town of Máku to the Bab in his prison cell, and to conduct any messages and that kind of thing. But of course, word has spread that the Bab is now imprisoned in this stone fortress in Máku. And so his followers from all over Iran start arriving in droves at the gates of the castle, trying to get in and see the Bab. And Ali Khan treats them with total disdain, chasing them away from the castle and really, just hurling abuse at all of these followers of the Bab. But there's one follower of the Bab, an older man called Sheikh Hassan Zunuzi, who has travelled across Iran, and he shows up one day at the doors of the castle, and he is just determined to get inside and see the Bab. And no matter how much Ali Khan tries to chase him away from the doors of the castle, Sheikh Hassan Zunuzi patiently waits day after day. He sleeps in a little mosque outside the castle, and he waits, hoping with all his heart that somehow he will be allowed in to see the Bab. And one day, the Bab says to the two brothers, tomorrow, Ali Khan is going to unlock the doors and let Sheikh Hassan Zanussi inside to see me. And the two brothers, they just can't understand how Ali Khan is going to possibly be induced to let the Bab's followers into the prison. But the Bab assures them that this is going to happen. And the very next day, Ali Khan himself shows up outside the Bab's prison cell in a state of terrible agitation. His head is bowed down, his body is trembling, he looks like he's seen a ghost. And he says to the brothers, is the Bab in his prison cell? And the brothers say, of course he's in there, he's locked in there. And with this uncharacteristic humility, Ali Khan asks the brothers if he could possibly talk to the Bab. And so they ask the Bab, and the Bab signals to bring Ali Khan inside. And Ali Khan steps inside the Bab's prison cell, shaking like a leaf. And he says to him, deliver me from my perplexity. I adjure you by the Prophet of God, your illustrious ancestor, to dissipate my doubts, for their weight has well nigh crushed my heart. I was riding through the wilderness and was approaching the gate of the town when my eyes suddenly beheld you standing by the side of the river, engaged in offering your prayer. I stood still and watched you. I was waiting for you to terminate your devotions, that I might approach and rebuke you for having ventured to leave the castle without my leave. In your state of rapture, you remained wholly unaware of my presence. I was suddenly seized with great fear and recoiled at the thought of awakening you from your ecstasy. I decided to leave you, to proceed to the guards and to reprove them for their negligent conduct. I soon found out, to my amazement, that both the outer and inner gates were closed. They were opened at my request. I was ushered into your presence, and now find you, to my wonder, seated before me. I am utterly confounded. I know not whether my reason has deserted me. And the Bab says to him, what you have witnessed is true and undeniable. You belittled this revelation and have contemptuously disdained its author. God, the All-Merciful, has willed to reveal to your eyes the truth. And so Ali Khan's attitude towards the Bab just goes through this wholesale transformation, and immediately he wants to try and do something to make amends for the way that he's been treating the Bab and his friends. And he suddenly remembers the old man waiting outside the gates, Sheikh Hassan Zanussi. He says to the Bab, a poor man, a sheikh, is yearning to attain your presence. He lives outside the gate of Máh-Kú. I pray you that I myself be allowed to bring him to this place, that he may meet you. By this act I hope that my evil deeds may be forgiven, that I may be enabled to wash away the stains of my cruel behavior toward your friends. And so Ali Khan runs downstairs, flings open the gates of the castle, and welcomes Sheikh Hassan Zanussi into the prison of Maku, and he brings him upstairs and delivers him into the presence of the Bab. And from that day onwards, every morning, Ali Khan opens up the doors and welcomes the followers of the Bab who are arriving in droves into the castle as his honoured guests in the prison of Maku. And so, on that note, I am really, really delighted to share with you the next song from Gate of Heaven, Forgiveness, a beautiful prayer of the Bab about the boundless powers that are released and the doors that are unlocked through the practice of forgiveness. So it'll be on my YouTube channel tomorrow, and I really hope you enjoy this new song, and I will see you on the other side. Thanks for watching. Bye.